All right, let's talk Green Bay Packers. Obviously, regular season is finally right around the corner. Football is back. It's time to get excited. And the Packers have recently, with all this excitement going on, made a really smart under the radar addition. Good move by Green Bay. I'm Nick, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection. All right, we know the Packers, they're one of the top teams in football. They're going to be contending for an NFC North title, looking to make another deep playoff run come the end of the regular season. But to that end, to help support that cause, the Packers, have added a key piece to this football team in the form of former Miami Dolphin running back Chris Brooks. Under the radar move. Let's pull up the report, and then we'll talk about it more on the other side. This is courtesy of SI.com. Brooks went undrafted in 2023 out of BYU and latched on with the Miami Dolphins. In 9 games, he carried 19 times for 106 yards, 5.6 average. That's pretty darn good. The bulk of that production came in week 3 against Denver, a 70-20 blowout in which Brooks carried 9 times for 66. During the fourth quarter, he broke 5 tackles, gained 65 yards after contact, and had a long of 52 yards. Of his 19 attempts, he had 107 yards after contact. And again, with 9 broken tackles, according to Pro Football Focus. The Packers will be taking a mostly healthy roster to Brazil for Friday night's game against the Philadelphia Eagles. But again, as we all know, A.J. Dillon is on injured reserve, and Marshawn Lloyd didn't practice on Tuesday, and Emmanuel Wilson has been having a hip injury. He's been limited, as I'm sure you Packers fans are very well aware. All right, this I think is a really smart move by the Green Bay Packers. You get a guy who's been playing in a similar-ish scheme under Mike McDaniel to come in and back up the running back here, Josh Jacobs, give them some depth at a key position. Miles, I'm curious what your thoughts are on this. But first, Packers fans, in the comment section below, you open up with a really kind of interesting matchup down in Brazil against the Philadelphia Eagles. Give us your prediction, how this game will shake out. Final score, week 1, Packers, Eagles. Let's hear your prediction in the comment section below. But Miles, what are your thoughts on this latest move by Green Bay?
Nick, I think this could be a much bigger move than people give it credit for because of the injuries at the running back position. Because what travel? We're talking a long flight to Brazil, talking about a little bit different time zones. We're talking about a team that's going to have to come out and, get its first foot in the door. What travels? That's defense and that's running game. So having a good running back, in the uncertain circumstances, having good backup guy behind Josh Jacobs, I think that's going to be crucial. And I think having Brooks in there, he's a very interesting prospect as a guy early on in his career. Last year was his rookie season. Didn't have a ton of, touches, only 19 carries, really, 106 yards. I think in limited touches he showed he was a pretty good player as well. So getting a guy in here that's at least intriguing, he's not, your run-of-the-mill running back. I think that could possibly give you an upper hand when you're coming into a game. Having a guy back there where someone's like, hey, this guy did have some flashes last year. We don't have all the tape on him. We don't exactly know everything about him. Like I said, again, only 19 carries last season. But this is a guy that I think makes the game more interesting. When all of your running backs are banged up or injured and you don't know who can come, having a guy back there that at least makes, defensive coordinators think, could this guy be the real deal? We don't know. We haven't seen a lot about him quite yet. I think it's a really interesting option. And the fact is, he could be a lot better than people are giving him credit for. I think this could be a really good player. He got a concussion during the preseason, which allowed us not to really see if he progressed this preseason all too much. So I think it's a really good option for the Packers to pick up Chris Brooks. I think he can bring a lot to the table. And I'm excited to see what he does once he hits the field.
This time of the year, as we get into the regular season, it's a little bit different in terms of when you bring players on, when you sign players or cut players, right? Because you're basically managing your roster around the fringes to put you in a best position to win football games and set yourselves up for long-term success, right? So, for example, let's say a big question mark for you is offensive tackle. You want to hold on to a lot of offensive tackles on your practice squad and on an active roster. And what we've seen through the injuries so far with the Green Bay Packers is that running back is going to be a huge concern. The A.J. Dillon situation is very disappointing. The Emmanuel Wilson, the lingering hip, I think is a big concern. I'm kind of waiting for Marshawn Lloyd to get healthy. I think we're expecting big things out of Lloyd, but it just hasn't really materialized yet. Again, injuries aren't helping that. But look, this is a Packers team. They're going to have to get off to a fast start. The NFC North is absolutely brutal, and their schedule is just it's really after the Eagles. It eases up a little bit, but it gets crazy hard down the stretch. So this is a Packers team that's going to have to start fast. And I think the addition of a veteran guy like Brooks, a guy who's played football in the NFL before, right? This isn't some undrafted free agent this year. This is a guy who played kind of meaningful snaps, even though it was a blowout against the Miami Dolphins, for the Miami Dolphins last year, right? So he knows how to actually play in the NFL, right? You're not throwing some 7th-round rookie in there in a must-win game and say, hey, man, figure it out. You've got a guy who's done it before. You've got a guy who's lined up with Mike McDaniel down in Miami. Again, very similar background as LaFleur in Green Bay. I think there's probably going to be a lot of similar terminology there. So if the situation needs it, if it's there, if there's an opportunity, we know Brooks can come in and be productive. We know he can understand the terminology, and we know he can help this Packers team get through this sort of rough stretch in terms of injuries at the running back position. Because the one thing you don't want to have happen, right, is you lose a winnable game like against the Colts or the Titans or the Vikings coming up because you're down to one running back in Josh Jacobs, and you have to throw someone in there who doesn't know what they're doing. You have a couple of dead plays and you lose the game you should win, and that hurts you at the end of the season. We see it all the time, right? We see, the first 5 or 6 weeks, there's always a good team that loses a game they definitely shouldn't lose, and then it really hurts their seeding or their playoff chances at the end. Adding a guy like Brooks here should help the Packers mitigate that risk, especially considering the injury concerns that they're dealing with at the running back position.